Welcome to the Whiskey Congress. Honest, open talk dedicated to speaking the truth to those who are open to hearing it. Black, white, right, left. Most importantly, honest, bold, and fueled by good whiskey. In Whiskey Veritas, we are Whiskey Congress. Join the evolution.
Welcome again to Whiskey Congress. This is our Christmas episode. We're recording a bit earlier than usual. We're recording on Thursday the 20th?
Yeah.
Something like that? Okay.
Yeah.
Big
Happy
day.
holidays.
Don't say it's cold outside.
Baby, it's
Cold outside. But a lot happened politically, so we've got to cover a lot of that. But before we get into that, we got a new whiskey.
Yeah, buddy.
Sort of a new whiskey. A new whiskey that from the same distillery that we've talked about before.
Yeah,
Go
new
ahead, take it
offering.
over.
So a couple weeks ago, we did the Angels, sorry, I can't talk. We just did the straight Angels Envy bourbon, and I think we both liked it.
Yeah, we did.
And I told you that I had the Angels Envy Rye at home,
Right.
and I would bring it in for comparison. I've done that. And so this is, now that you've had it, you understand my hesitation on the original Angels Envy. The rye has a much more dynamic flavor. It's very
No doubt.
maple, gingerbread. It's very sweet, almost too sweet, but it comes in at 100 proof, 50%. So the alcohol cuts the sweetness, I think, a touch, and I think it's really, really good. I mean, for something that's so sweet, which is normally not my thing, it's aged in rum barrels, and the rum barrels were used for cognac before that, so that's where you're getting a lot of the sweetness from, right?
So were they used for maple syrup for that? Because
right.
damn it,
it's just like cognac is really sweet.
it is.
And so when you take those barrels and then you age cognac in it, and then you age rum in it, and that wood just holds those flavors in, and then they age this bourbon in it, and this is what you get, and I think it's really good between the strength and between the flavor. I mean, when you open the bottle, you let it open up, you pour it in the glass, when it hits your nose, I mean, you just think of a log cabin, maple syrup, maple leaf, all that sort of stuff. And, but the strength of it, you can't tell how strong it is, but it packs a punch. So I give it a 93.
I'm not going to go that high on it, but it's only because of personal preference. 'Cause it is too sweet for my taste, and I'm not a huge fan of maple as a flavor. So just personal preference-wise, it is a well-constructed whiskey. I'm calling it a 90, even though I'm not going to say it's my thing, because it is so mapley. Yeah. I mean, it is literally, when you poured this and I tasted it, I asked you, was it aged in maple barrels? Because it is so mapley. So if you like that, you will love this whiskey. And it does pack a punch, and they have masked the strength of the whiskey phenomenally. I mean, right. I asked you what the strength was, and my eyes bugged out when you told me it was 100 proof, because it is smooth as silk. It's well crafted. It just doesn't hit me where I itch, basically.
Okay.
But it's still, obviously, if you like maple flavor, if you like a sweeter whiskey with big body, with complex flavors, then you're going to love this stuff. It just, it's not right up my alley.
Yep. And it comes in at about $100 a bottle.
Hey, okay, so there's that.
Right. So there is that. But I think when you put all of that together, I think it's definitely well worth it, and that's one that I keep. It's one that I keep locked away on my personal top
special
shelf.
occasion whiskey, and don't break it out for me, because you've got other stuff I like better for the same price.
Right.
No, I mean, thanks for bringing it over. It's good stuff. It's just, again, not right up my alley.
But what's amazing? We have the other bottle of Angels Envy here,
right?
And they're just so dynamically different. It's amazing
my gosh,
that that they come out of the same place,
building, right? I completely agree with that. So anyway, Angels Envy Rye,
aged in Caribbean rum barrels, and soaked in maple syrup. All right. What a weird couple days politically. Right.
Now,
just starting with tonight in the last couple hours, General Mattis has issued his resignation. He provided his resignation letter to the president, and you and I just watched Don Lemon read it on CNN.
Yes, we did.
You know, I'm not a huge fan of Don Lemon, but you know, he was the
he was reading what Mattis said.
He
So
was the
this is
vehicle, right? Like, I mean, there was no spin to really put on it. And to summarize it, Mattis felt that there was a strong difference of opinion in terms of the way our, you know, foreign policy and military, our military, you know, should what their role should be on the international stage, and a lot of that had to do with, you know, Trump declaring victory in Syria and pulling partially out in Afghanistan, and he said, "You go find someone else who agrees with you because I disagree, and I'm not going to, I'm not going to kowtow to you, and so I'll give you plenty of time to find somebody else. See you later."
So from a professional standpoint, I give Mattis a lot of credit. I mean, so I've resigned from a lot of positions. Some of them under very brief circumstances. One of them, I literally walked in and said, "Okay, I'm done. I'll give you 2 weeks if you want it. I'm willing to walk out right now." And they said, "Finish up, be gone by lunchtime." That was, and I have no regrets about that one because I was working for a company. Yep. All right. Yeah. Don't burn bridges. Right. So Mattis, you could call his resignation letter caustic, critical. I mean, he did not hold back, but he still maintained professionalism, which you'd expect from a general. Having said that, it is, Trump tweeted like, Jim's been a great guy and we appreciate his service and whatever, and try to make it all glowy sounding. And Mattis basically said, "We're heading different ways. I'm not on board with what you're doing. I'll do what I can to be a patriotic servant of the country, but I'm done." And I've got mixed feelings about this, to be honest with you, because from a Trump perspective, he did talk about getting us out of foreign wars where we had no national security interests. You could argue whether that is accurate or not, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. But that's what he's doing. And when it comes to like knowledge of what is right in global military strategy, I'm going to trust most people in the world over Donald Trump. Having said that, at some point we can't be policing the whole world. We just can't.
I fully agree with you, but I think where Mattis and some of the other, Mattis as the Secretary of Defense, Mattis as a decorated general, and a number of other people in the military, there was a lot of criticism for Obama for, pulling out of Iraq.
Right.
When he did and the manner in which he did it.
Right.
And I think what they're saying is, listen, you jumped all over Obama for, the way he handled that situation, and this isn't any different, right? Like, yes, ISIS is quiet now, but it's going to flare up again. Once we pull out, we're going to create a vacuum, and we're going to have problems, and it's going to destabilize the region, right? Not that it's the most stable, but it's going to cause it's going to create additional problems, which in turn creates national security risk for the United States.
In the sense that the Taliban and
whether it's the Taliban or ISIS
I'm just saying that
any,
in the sense you have a group that's going to have reasons to try to hurt America remotely.
Right. I mean, and so, no, we don't want to be in places forever, and we shouldn't be. And no, we don't want to police the world. We can't. But what Mattis is saying is that this is not a short-term thing.
Right.
If we're going to get involved and we're going to engage, we can't say, all right, well, we were there for 18 months, problem solved, victory, pull out, right? It takes time. It takes time to stabilize the region. It takes time to train, the local forces on how to really address these issues. And they need longer than, 8 months, right? Because if you look at the time we went over there to when we were able to really get them organized and then begin to train them, how long has that actually been? How long have we actually been effectively able to train the local forces to defend themselves appropriately versus any number of possible attacks that could come their way.
My concern is whose side should we be on? Because clearly not Assad's. I mean, Assad is a fucking monster, and I don't, have any issue with supporting groups that fight against him. But the folks that are fighting against him are not. I mean, this is almost 1980s Afghanistan that led to the Taliban again. I mean, we fuck around with these things. We do it half-assed.
Right, but that's Mattis's point. We can't do it half-assed. We can't do it half-assed. We have to go in this. We have to understand that we're going to have to be there for an extended period of time. And
with what objective? I don't.
But
again, I don't know.
I fully agree. I agreed. Right, like there needs you, but I don't know if you can. I mean, I'm sure someone somewhere can come up with a PowerPoint presentation on what the objective is, what the timeline should be. Whether it's another 5 years, maybe it's another 10 years. I mean, I heard
that's
okay,
no,
fine,
sorry,
but I mean, like a lot of the analysis that I heard coming out of Iraq was, yes, we've been there for this amount of time, but we need to be here for another 10 years to make sure that the forces on the ground are trained correctly,
right,
and that certain processes are put in place, and that takes time and effort and energy, and you can slowly over, let's say, a 10-year period, slowly and incrementally bring people back, right? And you need to cycle people through because, people, the war fatigue and everything else. Yeah. But the reality is that it probably takes longer than 2 years, right, to fix the problem. And I think that's what Mattis is saying, right? And maybe Mattis is saying, listen, maybe we can't commit to doing this for another 15 years, but you've only been in office for 2 years. Let's at least see it through to the end of your term, right? And he hasn't said specifically what he would do different, and I don't know.
Not publicly.
Not publicly.
I'm sure he has.
Right. Yes, but and I don't know enough about strategy to begin to speculate on what it should be, but it seems like his thought process is we have allies over there. We've committed to them to this point, and now, essentially, we're pulling out, and we're leaving them.
In alert, right? Including Israel.
Yes.
Including, I mean, how I feel about Saudi Arabia, but they're in that mix. Right. It's a whole region.
What about how does Iran act? Respond to this? Do they make a power play? What about Russia?
What do we do if they do?
Right. I mean, there's a number of question marks that are left here. Now you can say, well, what's the difference between doing it now and 10 years from now, right? And I don't know. Right? I mean, you could say the end goal would be that we have trained the local forces to the point where they are just as effective or nearly as effective as we are in defending themselves, and preemptive strikes and the whole thing. We help build them up, and it gets to a point where they can protect themselves enough to where it doesn't come up, right? They don't need us, and if they do, maybe we send a small group over there to help them out, to back them up, but we don't need to send a full offensive over.
So here's the thing: unlike Donald Trump, I don't think I know more than the generals,
right?
Which he said during the campaign, and I'm poking a stick at Trump supporters, and yes, I did that on purpose, and deal with it.
He said it during the campaign.
He bragged about it. I mean,
right. I mean,
I know more than the generals. Believe me. Fuck. Anyway, having said that, I don't know how well the generals have the big picture figured out. I remember watching a soldier, I forget what rank he was, during the Iraq War, saying, like, I was trained to do these things. I was trained to identify the enemy, to kill the enemy, to secure land, to do these things. I was not trained how to rebuild a school system once we did that. I wasn't trained on how to restructure a government once we did that.
I've heard similar things, but that's a different.
Well, and so
that's still part of it. That's still different.
Someone needs to know how to do that, though, right?
Right. Agreed. And there are people who know how to do these things, or at least who have better knowledge, who have a better understanding of these things than our military forces. And so, if we're going to go into a country, then should we look at a better overall plan that has an exit strategy, that has actual nation building involved with it, with the necessary people, whether it's because, you need bilingual people who can speak the language or who can learn the language quickly, that are, in essence, social workers, engineers, civil, mechanical,
rebuild infrastructures.
Right. You need the actual physical rebuilding, and then you have to build things like school systems and, how to establish government
food supply.
Right. Like just the logistics of all of it, soft and hard. And that's a hell of a price tag, because we have those same issues here.
And there's that.
Right. I mean, and if you look at our public school system,
they drive 5 miles from where we are right now.
Right.
And you'll say, holy shit, your infrastructure is garbage. You don't have...
Exactly. So so it raises the question, why are we going to these places in the first place if we can't, if the only thing we can do is shoot and kill and teach other people to shoot and kill, but it doesn't really solve some of the actual problems that come with rebuilding a nation.
Right. We've talked about this before, but neither of us, I don't believe, can name a single time when the United States or any other country successfully had a military action in a country and then rebuilt it and made it solidly whatever. Has it ever happened? Stable. Has that ever happened? Vietnam Vietnam right now is actually a pretty stable country. And what's kind of funny to me, and really interesting to me, is that Americans are welcome there. Like, we think of Vietnam as our biggest kick in the dick as a nation war-wise, and it was. Mm-hmm. But we're so far down the most hated list. It's the Chinese, the Japanese, the French, then us and the English fighting for the next spot. Yep. And Vietnam, for the most part, has become a democratic, capitalistic, economy. It's apparently relatively safe. I also love Vietnamese food, but that's a different discussion for a different time.
I don't know enough about Vietnam to really say how we're viewed there. I've never been.
I've heard multiple interviews with people who've been there, and they said basically, as an American, you walk around and make it plain as day that you're American, and they're like, yeah,
But they beat us, technically. So.
It depends how you count. It was a tie, Steve. But it's kind of emblematic of where we're at now, because we went into Vietnam with just we need to stop communism. And we didn't really know what that meant, and we didn't have a clear goal. We didn't have full congressional, approval of the war, which we also don't have in Syria or Iraq.
Yeah, but that's pretty much gone out the window.
Which is a big deal, but we just gloss right over, by the way, right? Yeah. And when you do the math on that aspect of all this, it's like people talk about the Constitution all the time. One of the things in the Constitution was the president cannot declare war. Only Congress can declare war. So we then said, well, we'll have a police action. And that started in Vietnam. Maybe, I don't even know what Korea did, but in Vietnam it was, in fact, in Korea I'm sure it was authorized, but in Vietnam I'm sure it was not. So, okay, we're having a police action. And we basically spun that into what led to post 9/11 and just said, well, the president can do this thing, and it's not technically a war, but,
It's a skirmish.
Right.
We're just in a little skirmish.
It's a military action based on national security.
It's just a little gun and bomb skirmish.
As long as it involves national security, you can do whatever the fuck you want. And we've let that go as a country, and no one... And, this is where a Bernie Sanders or a Jill Stein or my boy Gary Johnson would probably step in and say, we need to reel this shit back in, but it'll never happen. And, you mentioned before that, should we have been there in the first place? I don't know. My knee-jerk reaction is no. But we're there. Right. And once you broke it, you bought it. Yep. And we broke it.
And we have paid a lot of money for it.
We paid it, right.
We have and will continue to pay for a while. So
remember when the Bush administration said that the Iraq War would take maybe 6 weeks, maybe 6 months, probably not 6 months, and it would essentially pay for itself? How'd that work out?
Not quite how that worked out. But, it's where we are. And
that was what shaped me politically, was that war. I mean, 9/11, obviously I was a 30-year-old and I was very shaken up by it. And then when that went down the way it did, that pushed me so far against the Republican Party that I became what I'm perceived as being all left, which I'm really not. But anyway, I saw a face was made on the record. A face was made. Anyway, would you like to describe how a Democratic congressman responded when he heard that General Mattis stepped down? Since she'll be,
and I quote, "Oh shit."
Don Lemon put that on the screen.
It was. I mean, we both saw it at the same time, and both laughed immediately. And it's not funny because there
truly
is,
it's not, but it kind of is.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of implications to this with Mattis stepping down as a Secretary of Defense, but Representative Garamendi. His reaction to Mattis' resignation.
2 words.
Oh, shit.
Oh, shit.
California, December 20th, 2018.
I'm guessing this will end up on our Instagram.
It's on our Twitter right now.
Oh, it's on our Twitter already?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But, hey, I mean, it is. I mean, because, Mattis was, I think everyone, that was the one thing where everybody kind of agreed, that was a good fit for that position based off of his experience, based off of his credentials, that it was a good fit. And, for him to step back, I mean, you look at the people who have left this administration, whether it's Rex Tillerson or now it's Mattis, and now
Kelly.
Right.
If we start naming names, we'll take up the rest of the show. So.
Yeah, I mean, there have been a number of people who have either left or been asked to leave, or whatever it might be, and so it just, we'll see how this shakes out, because I mean, you also have the whole thing with Mueller.
Then there's the Mueller investigation.
The Mueller investigation, right? I mean, there's a lot there.
Where is your current stance on the Mueller investigation? Because we've both been I have been all over the board on this thing. Most of the time I've said, in terms of actually impacting the administration, nothing's going to happen. I have believed that for almost the majority of it. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think that they haven't, that they've been not doing anything. I mean, I forget the number of guilty pleas and indictments, but it's a lot. So to say that the issue is nothing, I disagree with. There clearly was Russian interference. Every intelligence agency has said that. Clearly, there were people in America, American citizens and Russian citizens, who did things that impacted our election sovereignty. And you can say, well, we fool around in other countries. Yeah, we do. And maybe that's not cool, but that's what espionage is. And you don't have to accept other countries' espionage and say, well, we tried it too. It's all good. It's all about winning. And so, having said all that, until recently, I did not believe that the Mueller investigation would result in anything impacting the high levels of the Trump administration. Right now, I'm on the fence. I think Don Jr. could be indicted. I think there could be Manafort's already pled guilty, and Flynn is going to probably go to jail at some point, and Cohen is going to prison for 3 years. So it already has impacted people in his inner circle. But really chipping away at the top, I didn't think anything would happen. I'm not so sure now. Your floor, sir.
So I want to be careful with this, because it's easy to get caught up in the hype based off of mainstream media.
Agreed.
And it's frustrating because on both sides you have a lot of rhetoric. You have the Democrats and the progressive left who are looking for any and all things to get Trump out of office.
Right.
Right. Like, I mean, they're looking for, they hang on anything that has to do with Mueller, anything that has to do with Russia. Like, they hang on every single thing, hoping that this is the thing that we can use to get him out of office. And to a point where to me, it feels disingenuous and very undemocratic. Right?
Can I interrupt you and say it's almost the same thing as when Obama got elected and people started saying, well, his birth certificate isn't real because that was their last gasp at not...
Exactly.
Right,
that's what it... I mean, and it's very similar, but it just... You have that groundswell on the left, and it's not small. On the other side, you have your GOP and your conservatives and, everything that's on that other side who will sweep anything and everything under the rug as no big deal. Like, oh, well, General Flynn or Lieutenant General Flynn, I mean, he didn't know it was illegal to lie to an FBI agent during an interview. So, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. And, campaign finance violations, I mean, come on. Is it really a crime? So on both sides, you just have this ridiculous amount of rhetoric that, people on, the base of either side are clinging to, whether it's a talking head, a pundit, somebody from the Democratic Party or the GOP or whoever it is. And wherever you align, whatever narrative it is that you want to see play out, that's whoever is saying what you want to hear. That is what you cling to with all your might, no matter what. And you can't. And a lot of people will not listen to reason.
And I'm trying so hard not to do that.
And my whole thing is, right now, there's a lot of smoke and there's a lot of grumbling and bubbling under the surface, but I just have to reserve judgment and reserve thought and analysis until more plays out. And it seems like I'm straddling the fence, but you know what? I am.
Well, that's maybe the smart move.
I am because I'm trying
to straddle the fence too.
Right. I don't have enough information. I mean, there's when if you just listen to Fox, MSNBC, CNN, Breitbart, and all your news outlets that you would listen to that have a following, if you listen to all of those, right, then your exact response should be, you know what? None of you know what the fuck is going on. None of you, right? Because they all look at the same thing and they all spin it however they want to spin it. So I think the prudent move is you have to continue to wait. I've said all along that I think a lot of the issues with the Russia investigation stemmed from Flynn and Manafort, right? In their relationships and what they were doing. And then when you have actual Russian interference, when you've got basically a troll farm in Russia, dropping racist memes, all over the internet, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, and it's getting spread like wildfire. There's something there, but I don't know what it is. And what we have to be careful, at least what I have to do or what I'm going to do, is separate bad behavior from actual illegal behavior. Because there's a difference between something being morally wrong, unethical and legal, and actually having legal implications. And as much as you may not like Trump, and as much as things that he has said and done may be immoral or, unethical, they may not be illegal, and it may not be enough to do anything with other than say, shame on you. You're a dick.
Which, that ship has sailed.
Right. So...
You called a porn star that you fucked horse face.
Right.
Whatever.
It makes you a dick, but...
Being a dick is not illegal.
Right. It's not illegal, and I can't impeach you on that.
Right.
And what I think we have to be careful, and, Democrats and people on the left aren't going to like this, but, we saw this with Clinton to a degree where his whole impeachment process, that whole investigation was over a land deal, and we ended up impeaching him over a blowjob in the Oval Office, over a lie about a blowjob in the Oval Office. And what did that do for Clinton? In the end,
actually, it made him more powerful.
It made him more popular, more powerful, because people saw it and they're just like, man, I don't care. At the end of the day, I've said on the record and as a stand-up, if I ever end up in the Oval Office,
My number one goal is to get a blowjob in the Oval Office. Number one goal. I offer no apology for that.
I mean, the good news is we know you're not going to.
And that's not going to happen.
But
I don't think either of those things will ever happen again, to be honest with you. But
that's
sad for me. But
that is sad and disappointing for you. You can live vicariously through me. Anyway,
all right.
But with Clinton, we saw this, right? Like we saw an investigation that was
overreach.
Right. I mean, Kenneth Starr just went too far, and 2 points for the rhyme. And then when it all comes out, it's just like, what do we do? You told us he was doing shady land deals, and now we're talking about a stained dress and weird shit with a cigar, right? Like, there's no connection here. And so the issue that you're going to have is that if the Democrats push this and they try to get Trump on...
Don't swing and miss.
Right. Like, well, I mean... hold on. If they try to get him on the campaign finance reform, or I'm sorry, the campaign finance violations.
Right.
My thing is that you're going to have that sort of Clinton bounce, right? Because we were told that it was this whole thing with Russia, and he colluded, and he was Putin's puppet,
smoking cigars and drinking vodka.
It's all that. But then you're going to try to impeach this man on, paying off a porn star.
Right.
And
no, I'm with you. I'm not.
No, and I just think that, can you? Right. So Kenneth Starr and company
Clinton was impeached.
Right.
And
yes,
then it wasn't
exactly.
confirmed in the Senate.
Right. And it wasn't confirmed in the Senate. And just like this would never, the campaign finance thing is
zero
chance that the Senate is going to be, that they would even, you would have remotely nearly close enough votes to
confirm
to confirm. Yeah. Right. Like, it's just not going to happen. So if you do this on something small, just because that's what the loudest voices say, no matter what the percentages of those voices, how big or small they are, if you go in and you say, we're going to impeach him because he paid off Stormy Daniels and somebody else, then I think you're pretty much ceding the presidency at that point to Donald Trump for another 4 years.
You're not. I don't 100% agree, but I certainly don't disagree with any strength.
Well, because I mean,
your logic is sound. I'm not arguing with your logic
because you're not going to get it confirmed in the Senate, and his base is going to explode.
Agreed.
And you're going to have people that are on the fence in the middle who are going to look at it and say, "This is bullshit." Right? Like, this is bullshit. I don't care who he fucked, and I don't actually care that he paid him off.
I don't either.
And then that it's going to push some people further right. Right? We've seen it. People that we know, people close to us who were, staunchly all about Obama and Black Lives Matter and everything else, and now we look at them and they're, definitely closely tied or moving that direction. Right, they're moving over they're moving further right. They're moving closer and closer to Trump. They still don't like him. They know that there's a bad stench there, but they're willing to clip their nose because they don't trust the left. They don't trust Democrats because the Democrats are trying to make a power play that they don't really have a right to make.
And the funny thing is, you said moving further right, but what right means has moved on its own. Because right used to mean fiscal conservative, which was bullshit because no Republican was ever actually fiscally conservative since the ever. And
well, listen, they're moving away from the left.
Away from the left towards
right.
Trump. But I'm saying Trump has become the new right, and he frankly would have been revolting to the Ronald Reagan era or the George W. Bush era of the right. Would have found Donald Trump repugnant. But now the right is that. So he has owned the party. He owns that party now. He is the face of that, and his supporters are fervent. No doubt about it.
There's nothing that he's not. There's very little that I think that he could do that's really going to turn them off, right? I mean, because he is going however he spends it, they're going to buy it. Now, this thing with Syria and Mattis leaving, I think it'll be frustrating. It'll be a blip. It'll be, this is disappointing and I don't understand it, but they will reconcile it and they will still support him no matter what.
You're probably right on that. I always wonder what the tipping point will be. Like, Ann Coulter turned on him today.
Ann Coulter,
and she's been a powerful... I mean, I think Ann Coulter's a moron and a phony. I have no respect for her whatsoever. But she's been a powerful voice for true conservative right-wing politics for a
Ann
long time.
Coulter's whole thing is, listen, let's just try to keep the country as white as possible, right? I mean, that's what it boils down to. Ann Coulter,
She never actually said that.
she won't actually say it, but I mean, if you break it down,
you're right,
it's let's keep the country as white as possible. She, I mean, she is big on immigration. She's big on illegal immigration, and we have to fight it. We need a wall. We need gun turrets on the wall. We need gun turrets and landmines. The whole thing, right? That's her thing. That's the only really thing that she's really standing on the last, I would say, year. Right? If you follow
20 years.
Right. I mean, we follow her on Twitter. That's her huge thing. And so now
we follow her on Twitter.
We do.
But who doesn't anymore?
What's that?
Trump unfollowed her
Oh
today.
yeah, right. Trump did unfollow her because she turned on him. But she's still. But her whole thing, what's interesting, is that she turned on him, but she didn't turn on the premise of the wall and illegal immigration, and basically saying we shouldn't let anybody in except for Europeans from the Netherlands.
Right.
So
She's willing to allow Swedish and Danish immigrants as well.
But that's her thing. So she's turned on him, but she hasn't turned really completely
on her premise.
On her premise. So I mean, she's still going to be spouting the same shit.
I just think it's hilarious that Ann Coulter and Donald Trump are in a Twitter war, and he unfollowed her.
Yeah,
I am being juvenile about them being juvenile. Sorry.
That's fine.
They're the president of the United States and a New York Times best-selling author. I'm a dude drinking whiskey in my Cleveland studio. So our Cleveland studio.
I said we should have wrote a book a long time ago.
You did. We still could.
That's true.
That's not out of the question yet. Actually, we should definitely. I even remember the title you wanted to do. A little racist.
There you go.
All right. So speaking of the Mueller investigation, Mike Flynn was not sentenced.
No, he wasn't, and he was not sentenced not for anything that he did or his lawyers asked for, but essentially the judge in the matter just kind of had a meltdown. I mean,
I'm laughing at stuff that is not funny, but I can't help myself.
It's really bizarre. It's not. My issue with this is I have issues with the judge in the way the judge handled this.
I've talked about judges like using the bench to be pompous and whatever. And I talked about it with the Serial podcast and Judge Gall, who by the way was reelected in Cleveland. And I was at the poker table the other day. I've been playing poker again quite a bit, by the way.
I have no idea who that was, by the way.
Judge Gall?
No. Who was at the poker table with you
right.
from my gym?
No one does. Just the point. Oh, sorry.
The guy from my gym.
Okay.
Sorry.
Side conversation. I was playing poker, and there was a guy who works out at the same gym as Steve. And when he mentioned that, I asked him if he knew you, and he did not. And I'm like,
okay.
It was a big guy, black guy, lawyer, lists wearing glasses, and he was like, yeah, maybe I know him. So I probably should have shared that with you. But anyway, so I've expressed my concerns about judges like using the bench to be pompous, and I mean maybe that's part of the job. But having said that, the judge in the Flynn case.
Yeah, it's the Honorable Emmett Sullivan. He stopped short of accusing Flynn of treason. He flat out asked, is what he did, could it be considered treason? And even the prosecutors, right? And the prosecutors were technically on the judge's side.
Right.
Right? Or just like, no. Right? And it wasn't. It was, he was...
You let your country down, I believe.
It was just... It was... Part of the issue was he didn't know he didn't know the material facts of the case, right? And you're the judge, and you've got the information ahead of time. It shouldn't be new. So it's like he didn't know what he knew the name, he knew kind of what it was about, but he didn't know the material facts and the actual, issues at hand. And I just felt like it was really, it was a bad representation of what the bench should be.
Would you go so far as to call it unprofessional?
Yes, it was.
Okay, all right.
It was. And yes, he was critical of Flynn, and he was very patriotic. You let your country down, and treason, and the whole thing, and that's all good and great, and sounds good, and like it could be in A Few Good Men too, but
you want answers,
right? But you want treason, I'll show you treason. But this was just not what should be coming from a federal judge, and so they ended up postponing it. There's no new date scheduled, and we'll see where it goes. Flynn and his defense said, listen, he said he was still accepting responsibility. He was still pleading guilty. They didn't want to change the plea. They didn't want to change anything. They just wanted to get the sentence over with. And the judge's behavior is what caused this postponement.
Is Flynn currently in custody, or is he?
No, he's not. He's not.
Because that would be an interesting thing to know.
Well, because the thing is, the recommendation.
Will he get pardoned is my point.
Well, the recommendation is no jail time because he cooperated and he cooperated from the beginning. The recommendation is no jail time, and so the assumption was he was going to go in, get sentenced.
Saying you were bad,
right? He was going to get a slap on the wrist,
again.
right? It's going to be a black mark because it's a felony on his record and whatever. But he was going to be able to go home and just continue on with his life and probably be a commentator for Fox or Breitbart or whatever, and everything would be fine. But this judge loses his shit, and
said, I can't do this.
And the judge is like, do you guys want more time? They're like, yeah, we need more time, and hopefully you go away and we get someone else who is sane and we can just go through with this. Because I think the feeling was that the judge was going to look at it and not accept the proposal of no jail time. That's the way it was feeling.
Oh.
And so it's just like you're going to kind of, basically it's like you're going to screw up the deal.
Because he's going to then withdraw his plea maybe.
Right, but he didn't, he hasn't withdrawn his plea, but I think they're allowing for a cooling off period. I'm sure, the Honorable Judge Sullivan is getting a stern talking to from whoever his boss is.
Who is that?
I actually don't know, but I don't know who. I'm sure there's a board or something, but it didn't play well. It was a bad look, and hopefully we can just get this over with. Because he's going to.
He's pled guilty.
He's pled guilty.
Pleaded. I don't even know what the right way to say it is.
He pled guilty. He's probably going to get sentenced to no jail time, and then that'll be it.
A lot of political stuff we had to talk about. I'm glad we did. You're going to hear this right before Christmas. One more political thing I want to hear your thoughts on.
Okay.
Stephen Miller is hilarious to me. Now, I'm a bald white guy.
I'm a bald black guy.
You're a bald black guy. Have you ever considered spray painting your head before going on national TV to try to hide that fact? Because Stephen Miller did that, and it was hilarious.
All right, so first of all, I have never considered spray painting my head, whether it's going on national TV or
not, right,
or going to Giant Eagle up the street to go buy milk. That's insane. I saw the picture and I didn't understand it. I'm like, whoa, because I saw the picture first. And I didn't understand what I was looking at. I'm like, what is on his head? It looked like someone smeared shit on his head.
I did not go bald gracefully. I did comb overs and shit. You never saw it. It wasn't awful. God. It was bad. It was only really bad.
We wouldn't be friends.
We probably not. And I would respect you for that. Because I used to do everything to fight it, man.
White guys love holding on to your hair.
Holding on to the hair.
Why is that so important?
Because being a white guy with a shaved head creates images that you don't really want to put out there. But anyway, I fought this, and I would put pomade in my hair and fight over the bald spot. And then finally, my cousin's wife said to me, "You're fighting for scraps. Fucking give it up."
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? You're right. And I went,
let it go.
Done. And I'm cool with that. Stephen Miller has been noticed publicly bald for a while, and then he tried to fake it with Couvre, which if you don't know what that is,
I know what
Google
it is.
It's hilarious.
I'm just curious. You have to wonder, because Stephen Miller is a young guy. He's
Yeah,
younger
he's
than
not
I
that
am.
old.
And so I have to wonder if maybe he had a date or something and he wanted to.
That's going to help you get laid?
I don't know. Man, listen. I mean,
You're looking at this guy.
I am. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe that'll help break the streak. I don't know. I just, it's.
I guarantee you. I'm supposed to have a date tomorrow. We'll talk about this offline.
Right.
But if I do, this girl has met me multiple times. I finally asked her out. We're supposed to meet for a drink tomorrow night. If that happens, and I show up with car primer spray painted on top of my head, I guarantee you that does not help my odds. What the fuck was it you thinking?
Blind date, maybe? I don't know.
No. Oh, well, okay, fair.
Not you.
Right.
Right. I don't know. It's bizarre. And it doesn't help his whole demeanor, his
demeanor,
everything about him
he's
is
a
off.
jackass, if you want my opinion. But
yeah, I mean, he's everything about him is a little off to me. And so when you mix the two, it is a bad combination. I mean,
jackass plus
spray on hair,
auto paint primer on head.
Why is that a thing?
What?
Why is spray on hair a thing?
I do.
It shouldn't be a thing.
I don't know, and
right?
I don't know how you do it. Like, do you literally go?
Well, I've seen commercials,
and that's what it looks like.
And the commercials look really good. You're just like, you know what? I mean, no. Let me back up.
Please.
Commercials don't look really good, but they're at least symmetrical when they do it on the commercials, right? I mean, it's always perfect.
And a Big Mac looks perfect when you see it on a commercial.
Exactly.
And then you see the mush stuff together and go, no. I'm sorry I had to drink his face on the road, but that was so funny to me.
It was bad. It was really bad.
All right.
I mean,
enough about Stephen Miller's hair. Again, I apologize for derailing us. First of all, I may not see you before Christmas. So Merry Christmas, brother. Merry Christmas to your family.
Yep, same to you.
So this week, the Bills...
Tell your mom and your sister I said hi.
I will do that.
Your brother too, but...
Okay.
If he would acknowledge that at all.
No, he would. This week, the Buffalo Bills will be playing the New England Patriots in a game that means nothing to the Bills and quite a bit to the Patriots, actually.
Yep.
And Josh Gordon has been suspended again. And I feel genuinely bad for Josh Gordon.
Well, and just as for those of you who may not follow the NFL for whatever reason, Josh Gordon is a guy who played here locally in Cleveland for the Browns, and who has just had just a myriad of issues relating to mental health and drug abuse. A couple of his suspensions, I will argue, were bogus. The one where he had a drink on a plane was bullshit, but I mean, those are the rules, right?
Right.
Like the rule, I mean, and what happened was he got suspended for weed, and it was like his second violation. So, they put him in the program, and then the program says you can't use any drugs or alcohol at all. Now, with the NFL, chances are he's probably been busted. He's been busted more than twice, right? He had been suspended twice, but the way the NFL's drug program goes, you get a couple chances kind of under the radar before it gets made public.
But once you're in the program,
once you're in it, and
if you can't keep it
right, and they're really strict on it. And as the story goes, he had a drink on the plane. The plane lands. They test him right away. He pops hot for alcohol, and he's suspended for the season.
Right.
I call bullshit on that because I think it's just a ridiculous rule. You say the guy got issue with weed, then if it should be drugs.
I'll call bullshit on that too because it's not performance enhancing.
But hold on. I mean, all right. Alcohol is a drug. Alcohol is bad. It's dangerous. Blah 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 blah. But it's just so socially accepted that maybe you give him a pass. Clearly, they didn't. So he was suspended for that. And he has just had a lot of he has a lot of talent.
Yeah.
And he's a very nice guy. I've met him in person on more than one occasion. Just a really nice human being. And just a kid who, and he is that. He's a kid.
Probably, 27, 28?
Yeah, probably 26, 27 years old. And I feel for him because people just don't smoke or don't do this or don't do that, and you will make millions of dollars. But there's a whole different level of pressure that comes with playing in the NFL. Does
Sure.
Josh actually want to play in the NFL? Or is he doing it just as a way to make a paycheck? Is it just a job to him? Does he love playing the game? And I don't know if he does, right? He may feel that that's the only thing that he can do to make a buck. And so he does it. And if it's the only thing that you can do to make a buck, genuinely, like if you work at McDonald's, not a lot of people are passionate about working at
Right.
McDonald's. Not a lot of people are passionate about working in a steel mill. They do it, they wake up, they grind through it, but they're not passionate. And if you're not passionate about the NFL, the toll that it takes on your body, the amount of pressure that's put on you by your friends and family because you see an opportunity to help your family, and Josh doesn't come from money, so it's an opportunity to, help out maybe his parents,
generations of your family,
right?
yeah.
He's got a kid or two that he's got to think about long term, being able to provide for them. Now, a lot of people say that's all I need to get up in the morning. Good for you, great. Good for you. I'm going to provide for my family. I get up and I do it and I grind through it no matter what. Okay, not everybody's wired like you, bro. And Josh is clearly wired a little bit different. I'm not sure he has the passion for the game, and you don't have the passion for something that takes the toll on your body that football does, and it does, right?
Oh, yeah.
I will, if I had a son, I would absolutely hope that my son would play football, but I understand the risk. I understand what your body goes through playing, especially like from high school to college. I don't know NFL because I didn't play in the NFL, but I played at a high level. I played against some really big, strong, fast guys, and I was able to compete, but I paid a price. And to play at the level
And
that
you
he's...
stopped at the age of 22 or 23.
No, I think I was a little bit younger.
All right, whatever.
Yeah,
my
but whatever.
point is that
Yeah.
Josh Gordon's gotten 5 more years of abuse on his body
Right.
at that level or above.
Right, and the practices out in the heat, out in the cold, running, getting hit, getting tackled, hitting the ground, getting up, constantly doing things like, listen, just during football practice, the things that happen to you on a football field, if they happen to you on the street, it would literally be a crime.
Yeah.
If someone hit you the way that I've been hit or the way that I've hit people on a football field, I could be arrested if I did it on the street. So
You're bringing up an argument that I always go off on people when they say something happened in a football game or in a sporting event, and they get fined, and like, if you do that on the streets, it would be a crime. Tackle somebody on the street. It's a crime. If I run up and just knock a person over in a football play, that's a great play.
yes.
If I do that right outside my house, I'm going to jail.
Right, exactly.
And so it's so. Sorry, it's a
but-
pet peeve of mine because that argument, like, if you did that on the streets, it'd be a crime. Boxing matches would have 500 crimes.
Well, exactly. But I mean, the point is that it just the impact of what happens. Like, I mean, I can still remember just the pain after
When
a
you
game.
played running back, I can't imagine what it feels like to wake up.
I mean, I was
day
like,
after game day as a running
in
back,
college-
and you were a young guy.
Right. In college, I was, I was a fullback, but I ran the ball a lot, caught the ball a lot. And so, after a game, my role during a game, running full, like to block someone, I'm in the backfield and I'm running full speed to hit a 220, 240, 50-pound guy as hard as I can to either put him on the ground or move him out of the way so that someone else can run and be free. Or my job was to get handed the ball and run as fast as I could.
And have 6 people trying to do that
Right,
to you.
and people doing that to me, right, and trying to avoid them, and usually not avoiding all of them, and 1 or 2 or more of them hitting me, landing on top of me, getting up, and doing it again, right? And then there are other instances where you go out and you run a route, the quarterback throws it high, you have no ability to protect yourself, and said 250-pound linebacker comes and literally annihilates you, hits you midair, and you land on something, shoulder, neck, hip, butt, leg, knee, head, whatever, and you get up and you do it again, and you do it over and over again. And then there's special teams, right?
Right.
I mean,
where you run as fast as you can and collide with somebody.
I mean, we're not even talking about warm-ups where we're on the same team and we just smashed. Hey, how do you get warm up for a football game? You stand a foot away from you, and then you run into each other, and you smash each other, and this is how we warm up. Like, it's insane, right? Like, you have to be a little bit loose in the head to play football. I don't care who you are, whether you're Peyton Manning or, Aaron Donald or whoever. Like, no matter who you are, you have to have a little bit of a screw loose to play football. And to do it for an extended period of time, with the amount of pressure that's put on you, not only by yourself, but by your friends and family, by the team that you play for, by the league that you play for, right? Because the league, right, it's all about protect the shield.
Right.
The league has standards. The team has standards. The fans have standards. And now there's social media, right? There's Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and people say, well, get off of social media. Okay, you get off.
Right.
Right? Like, people always tell people, oh, just get off. All right, well, you do it. Some people have. Good for them. But not everyone. Like, clearly,
Right.
I mean, considering half the world
of the
is...
United States.
Right. I mean, so... It's and sometimes you can't avoid it. Even if Josh Gordon wasn't on social media, he's still going to hear the whispers and everything else that goes along with it. And as a player, guess what? There's the gamblers and fantasy and everything else, right? Where if you don't perform, there's even more pressure that comes at you. Some guy walking down the street, hey Josh, you fucked me. You only got 2 catches and 20 yards, you asshole. Right? Just walking down the street. Right? And everyone says they can brush that off, but if you took the amount of criticism that players took, like especially at that level, like I know plenty of people who swear that they're the most even-keeled and they would brush it all off. They would probably go jump off a fucking bridge if they had to deal with some of the shit that these players... And I'm like, listen, it's not a pity party for the players, but not everybody handles it well. I don't think Josh does. I don't think he has a passion for the game, and I think that's why we're seeing the problems that we're seeing with him in terms of... whether it's mental health or drugs or whatever, and there's another suspension. So I have to believe that drugs are involved again.
What bothers me is that if this is about nothing other than alcohol and weed, I am currently under the influence of alcohol. I'm in my home studio. I've talked about drinking whiskey when the show started. No big surprise there. He lives in a state, he works in a state that allows recreational use of marijuana, of cannabis now. We all know why I backtracked there. So by my count, there are 8 teams in the NFL that play in places where recreational cannabis is legal. Mm-hmm. So what I'm doing right now, this minute, which is not performance enhancing. So here's where, when it comes to drug testing in sports, here's where I will stand up strong and say, if it's performance enhancing, steroids or amphetamines or other things, especially in a sport like football or a sport like boxing or mixed martial arts, where you're literally part of your game is potentially hurting someone else, then I am all for controlling that. Because
just to cannabis advocates will tell you cannabis could possibly be a performance enhancer because...
Why? Because it reduces inflammation and things like that.
If it reduces inflammation, if it reduces anxiety, if it
okay. But when I say performance enhancing, I mean you're not going to hurt someone using it.
I played basketball with a guy. Well, I played with him in like 8th grade, but he went on and played in high school and college. Smoked every day, and he smoked a lot. Like he would hotbox in his car before class. Like, he had a little Geo Prism, and that thing would be...
Smoke weed every day.
Right. I mean, it was like Snoop Dogg levels. It was wild. But his whole thing was he would smoke before games in high school. Right? And, he had this whole thing to try to, keep the smell down. But, the one day I asked him, I'm like, why'd you smoke so much? Right? And this is before I really understood all the different various things that go on with weed. And he's like, man, all I can tell you is that when I smoke, my court vision is like nothing you've ever seen. He's like, I can't explain it. When I don't smoke, he's like, I don't see the court nearly as well. But when I smoke, like I can see the court. Like all I'm saying is, and that's not
okay. Maybe that's not that you're making a mental argument about improvement, which is enhancing. But my point is that I am not it's
not going to make it right. I totally get what you're saying. Right, but I mean, a lot of a lot of these performance enhancers.
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of them
speed in baseball was
right. I mean, a lot of them are about recovery. A lot of them are about the ability to
True. HGH is recovery and muscle growth.
Right. I mean, so it's. But I get your point. The whole thing, though, is that it's wild that what we know about cannabis and the league stance on it, it makes no sense, right? Because it does, for these players, it probably does more good than harm, and they're sticking by. Well, it's illegal federally, and we don't want to. Which it doesn't matter though. Right, because the federal government isn't going to come and shut down as long as the teams and the league aren't supplying the players, then the league has no culpability in this, right? If the player on his own wants to go get a medical marijuana card or go get weed if it's legal in his state,
I didn't say 8 was just recreationally legal, not even medically legal, which would probably blow that number up to.
But what I'm saying is, if these guys want to smoke on their own. Or however they want to consume it, then fucking let them. At the end of the day, that's what makes the most sense. But the NFL has been known to not make sense with their rules and how they go about their processes and systems.
And how many of these guys are on prescription opioids? How many of these guys are taking OxyContin and Percocet?
I mean, I've written a couple of things on our website about just the ridiculousness of the whole situation with opioids and the drug use in the NFL. The drugs that the teams use, whether it's Toradol or Oxy or even just
Percocet, Vicodin,
all this other shit, Xanax, whatever. I mean, just a cornucopia, if you will, of dangerous addictive pills that ruin these guys' lives physically and mentally. They get addicted, or they may not be necessarily addicted, right? In the sense that they're fiending for it, and they end up on heroin, but it's the only way that they can function enough to play, right? Which then it's just like, I want to keep playing because I need to keep making this money, so I'll keep taking these drugs so I can continue to play. And a lot of times these guys, and the reason why they end up so fucked up is that these drugs just mask the pain to the point where these guys are playing with injuries that a normal, average human being would be out of work for months, right? There's a story of Marcellus Wiley. I mean, a muscle in his, essentially in his core detached from his body, and he played for 3 weeks with all these muscles just not attached, right? They were he was shot up on drugs, and he was taped up, and finally they're just like, you can't keep doing this, or something is going to go way wrong, and it's already way wrong.
I love Marcellus Wiley.
Right?
He was a bill for
he was. Right? And there's he was undersized and all that stuff, came from the Ivy League schools, all that shit, but. He tells these just crazy stories, and all these guys have these fucked up stories of things that, the average person, anybody in my office, I got people that will, I cut my finger the other day, and they're like, "You're gonna go to the hospital?" I'm not gonna go to the fucking hospital. I'm gonna suck on my finger. I'm gonna rinse it off. If I can find a Band-Aid, I will, or I'll tape it up, and I'm gonna continue to work, right? But there are people literally who. Or if they sprain an ankle, they don't show up for work for a week. You got guys that are literally played on broken limbs in the league. They do it in college. So it's a different mindset, and it's a different mentality. And I could see that taking a strain on a person who doesn't love the game enough, who's literally in it for a paycheck, which is not necessarily a bad thing.
Don't judge for that.
It just sucks to be in that situation, right? And if you're literally just in it for a paycheck to feed your kids, and the toll that it's taking on your body, and just the idea of waking up and going to practice or going to play into a game and having to hear the fans and having to listen to some coach yell at you because you drop a ball or you ran the wrong route, or some guy some guy with a supermodel girlfriend, yelling at you before, after, or during a game over a miscommunication. If that starts to give you fucking heart palpitations, I could see someone saying, "Fuck, I need a blunt. I need a pill. I need a drink, whatever it might be." and just saying, fuck it, it's not worth it. And I think that's where Josh is.
I haven't worked in 3 weeks and I need a drink.
Tim, you
I live a weird lifestyle. I get to take some time off and I'm enjoying it. I did play poker though.
I mean, even if you were at work right now,
yeah, I would still be drinking. You're right. You are correct.
Not at work, but
not. Thank you, because that would not be accurate. All right, brother. It is. Well, this will come out right before Christmas. Again, Merry Christmas.
Same to you.
Love you, man.
What'd you get me?
I'll show you.
Well, that got weird.
Yeah. Well, you started it.
Fair.
All right. Anyway, Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays. Hope everyone's
thank you for
Christmas is
listening. And
or whatever you celebrate, or if you don't celebrate, then that's cool. All that shit.
All of that is cool. No one's getting hurt. There is no war on Christmas.
Right.
And
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah,
Happy Kwanzaa.
Festivus. All
For
of
the rest of us, we are out.